and I got this terrifying feeling. And I said, I got to get out of here. I got to go now. It's terrifying. Something's out there in those trees. I'm Billy Decker. I live here in Santa Fe, Texas. I've been out here for 46 years. I moved out here in 1978 when I was 24 years old from Florida. And I've been working in the chemical plants and refineries out here, making a living out here. I'm not from this area. I'm not from Florida either. My parents are both from New York State. They met out there at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, and both being from New York State. They got married, and a year later, we moved to Topeka, Kansas, where Forbes Air Force Base was, and that's where I was born. So when my dad got out of the service, we went back to Johnson City, New York, and I lived there for the next 11 years. And my dad worked for IBM, and he got a promotion to move to Florida, Central Florida, to work with the space program back in the 60s. And so we moved to Cocoa Beach back in April of 1966. And then I went to Central Florida. I finished elementary school in Cape Canaveral and went to junior high school in Rockledge, Florida. And then in 69, my dad got another promotion to go to Boca Raton to work down there. And that's where I went to high school. And then I started working construction. And this is about what happened. Is I was in a store and I picked up this magazine. It was one of those men's magazines back. It had to be late '74. True Argosy magazine. I was reading this article about Bigfoot, and the person that was with me goes, "We don't call them Bigfoot down here. We call them skunk apes." And I went, "Oh, okay, So later that year, it was in December, I was working construction in Delray, building condos, and I was on a 3-man crew. And we were following the roofers and doing fascia board and subfascia. And we worked pretty good together, and we worked ourselves out of a job because we're subcontractors. So Roger, who was like the main guy, he lived in Davie, Florida. And he says, "I got a house to do in Davie. If you want to drive down there." I went, "Oh, yeah, that's okay, So I don't know if it was the next day or the next following day. I'm on Glades Road headed west out of Boca towards the turnpike. And I don't know if I was on the Glades Road or I was on the turnpike itself headed towards Davie, when I hear on the radio that a skunk ape has torn the stomach out of a horse and ripped the head off of a calf in Davie, Florida. And I go, "Well, that's where I'm going," and I thought, there's that word again. So I got to Roger's house and I asked him, I said, "Hey, you know what I heard on the radio?" He goes, "Skunk ape?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Everybody's phone in town is ringing off the wall because of that." I went, "Okay." So I said, "Where are we going?" He goes, "Oh, that house is about a half mile from that ranch." And I went, "Okay,
Hi, I'm Linda Eastburn of Linda Eastburn YouTube channel, and I have a new book out called Threshold to Encounters. It's about 40 years of research and experience with all of these wild cryptids that many of you I know have encountered yourself. You can find it on Amazon.com.
We all piled in Roger's truck. This is late, like December 1974. So we're piling Roger's truck. We go out there, and this house is in an orange grove. And they just knocked down enough trees to pour a slab and build a house. There were orange trees in our front yard, back yard, side yard. And behind it was the rest of the grove. And I thought, wow, this is crazy. I've never seen do something like this. So they were both married. And this isn't a job site. So there's no roach coach pulling up at break and lunchtime to feed you. And I was single, and I didn't make a sandwich. And Roger and Jimmy, they both had sandwiches their wives made. So I said, "Are we going into town?" And he goes, "No." So I said, "All right, I'll just go pick some oranges." So I walked back into the grove, I don't know, 100 yards, maybe more. And I'm looking at these trees, and these navel oranges are bigger than a grapefruit. And so I picked maybe 3 of them, and I got this terrifying feeling. And I said, "I got to get out of here. I got to go now. It's terrifying." So I walked back. I couldn't see the house. I looked around. I couldn't see the house. So I walked back out the same way I came in. I saw the house and said, okay, good. So I went into the house and I go, man, something's out there in those trees. And he goes, there's nothing out there but oranges. And I went, okay, whatever. So that was the first time I had this frightening, terrifying feeling. And and I didn't know what infrasound was back in those days. I didn't even know what infrasound was till like 2 weeks ago. So in either late 1977 or early 78, it was the wintertime. And I was visiting a friend of mine in Delray. And I left his house kind of late. And I was on my motorcycle. And I was driving out on West Atlantic Boulevard towards 441 because I lived out in West Boca. And it was a full moon. It was cool. I stopped my bike, and I just looking around, took my helmet off, and there's agriculture on both sides. All the fields were plowed. You could see a couple 100 yards in every direction. Full moon in the western sky. And all of a sudden, terrified again. And I got him, put my helmet back on, and took off. So that was the second time in Florida. So I moved here in 78, and I was working around the route, new construction, and I got a maintenance job for briefly. So I was out of work, and that's the way it is out here. You work shutdowns or new construction, you got to move on to the next job. So I was living in a trailer park in Alvin, and my neighbor goes, you want to come do some air conditioner work with us? I go, yeah. So I went to the shop, and I met this guy who would turn out to be one of my best friends. And we're like brothers for years. And he had some property up in Calvert, Texas, which is up between, and it's almost to Waco. And I had been up there before. I met Wayne with another friend of mine. We did some rabbit hunting up there. And when I met Wayne, he goes, oh, yeah, you were the guy. Yeah. And so he goes, come by the house and get the key to the gate. You can go up anytime you want. I said, okay. So that was like in June 1980. I was 26, or not 26 yet. And so in July, I went by his house and got the key. And he said, my horses are up there. He said, just look in on them for me. I said, okay, can I ride him? He goes, sure. So I took a bag of feed and I took my bridle up there and took 2 friends. And we're going to go up there and kill some hogs. So when we got there, it's off 979 and Rose Hill Road. If anybody wants to look on the map. And so we got there and we started looking around, checking the place out. 75 acres is real nice. And this is July. So I was walking around the woods. I said, well, I'm going to sleep in that tree tonight. That's where I'm going to be tonight. I'm going to stay out all night. And they said, well, we're not staying out in the woods all night. I went, suit yourself, So I didn't, what 8 o'clock, maybe before it got dark, it was like 15 feet in the air. I got a rope and I pulled myself up in the tree and then pulled my shotgun up there. And I tied myself to the tree and I made some stirrups because I was straddling a big branch and I didn't want my feet falling asleep. So my feet were hanging down. So I made some stirrups and I shouldered my shotgun and I'm just sitting up there. And I don't know what time it was. It was dark and the moon was like in the western sky and I was facing south. And I'm just kind of relaxing, leaning against a rope because you get tired of sitting in one position for so long. And I got that terrifying feeling again. And I looking around, and I just happened to look down and I see a pair of hands reaching up for my feet. And I looked down and I think I saw, the palms. Oh, I know I saw the palms, but I think I saw the face of it in a reflection of the moon because I was underneath the trees. And it's, even if the moon's out, it's dark underneath the trees. So I yelled, "Whoa!" because it freaked me out. And it was gone. I'm not saying it just disappeared. It just wasn't there anymore. And so I stayed in the tree all night. And I don't think I fell asleep. I think I stayed awake because it freaked me out. So I climbed out in the morning, went back to the camp. And I told those guys what happened. They both looked at each other and looked at me and went, oh, okay, Billy, So that was 1980. So in 1990, I'm with a friend of mine up in Broadus, Texas. And that's up on the northern part of Lake Sam Rayburn. And it was like December. It was cold. I took my insulated coveralls with me, and because Angelina National Forest is right there, and so I told Justin, I said, I'm gonna go shoot something. There might be some pigs out there. So I was armed. I had 9mm carbine, 30 caliber carbine. I had my PT-92 with me. If I got up on a herd of swine, they weren't gonna. I didn't want them eating me. In other words, so I crossed the road, and if you look on the map, you'll see a bridge, and then you see the town of Broadus. And in between there is that road that the lake houses are on. And I walked across that road and I walked down into the woods to this little creek that's called like Indian Creek, I think is what it's called. It's probably a couple hundred yards off of the road. And this is like December. It's cool, wind's blowing. And so I sat there till, man, going on 6 o'clock, and started getting dark. So I said, I better get out of here before I can't find my way out of here. So I walked back the same way I came in there, and all of a sudden, I hadn't gone 100 feet, and something is right behind me, and I didn't want to turn around and look at it, and I just kept walking and walking and walking, and I never did. When I got to the road, I just kept walking. I didn't want to look back at it, and come to find out, there's a lot of activity right in that area, to the north and to the south, all around Lake Sam Rayburn, and there are organizations in the Lufkin area that they go out looking for footprints around the chicken farms and stuff. So I told Justin when I got back, I said, man, something followed me out of the woods. He goes, what was it? I said, man, I don't know. I didn't turn around and look at it. So he goes, all right. And so now we come to 1997, which is in Cold Spring, Texas. And let me back up a little bit, because my wife homeschooled my girls for 8 years. And then they went straight into high school. They played girls softball, and then, they wanted to play league ball, and they played Division I ball and soccer in high school. So they went from, homeschooling right to high school. So while my wife was homeschooling my girls, she signed them up for Taekwondo from the WTF, World Taekwondo Federation. So I went, I was part of it. We all got our black belts together. And so when you're a black belt, you get, it's like a courtesy thing. You get invited to all kind of different seminars, Aikido seminars, judo seminars. I've been to like 3 of them. And they always want to pick on the guy, the Taekwondo black belt. So I was going, Mr. Decker, will you please come up here? Yeah. And boom, they always made an example out of me. But I knew all these guys, so I didn't mind. So anyway, I got involved with these martial arts camps. These guys were having, these other schools were having these camps up at around Lake Livingston area, around Cold Spring, at Wolf Creek Park, which is north of Cold Spring, and then Double Lake Park, which is you pass by just before you drive into Cold Spring. And so I been to 5 or 6 camps. I always competed on the color belt team, even though I was black belt. Like being on the color belt teams because there's more activity. It was more fun. Finally, I had, well, in January 97, we had a survival camp out, and there was a place in the woods at Double Lake Park where it was designated where I spent the night. So it was Mr. Decker's campsite. So we always had Halloween camp. We always had 2 camps, spring camp and then fall camp. Well, during the summer, they pulled me out. They said, no more fun for you. You got to be with us, on the black belt team. I said, okay. So the first event that I was on the black belt team, it was at Halloween weekend, 97. And I wanted to make this as realistic as I could, because we had what was called day trails and night trails, where you had 2 different teams and, of like 8 or 9 people, and you spread them out along the trail, like 100 feet apart. And, like the red team. And then here comes the member of the blue team walking down there, and the guy jumps out and do a little technique and laugh about it. And you go on to the next guy and he jumps out, until everybody does. And then you string out the blue team and the red team walks through. So I'm out in the woods. It was a Halloween weekend, but Halloween wasn't on the weekend. I think it was during like a Thursday or something. And I said, well, I'm going to make this as realistic as I can, just like the old Tarzan movies where you hear all the sound effects in the background. So I had all my predator calls with me. And it's probably about 11 o'clock at night, and I'm about 50 feet from where I spent the night that one time. And I'm 15, 20 minutes, I'm blowing into my predator calls: hog, hawk caller, wounded rabbit, owl, turkey. I took them all out there with me. And all of a sudden, this is about 11:30 at night, and I'm frozen with fear again. And I got on my radio, and I said, "Hey, I'm not by myself out here anymore." Now, all the black belts and some of the other team that weren't spread out, they were all up on the bridge, and so they heard me say it on the radio. And this one friend of mine, Matt, goes, "I remember when you said that on the radio." He just told me a couple of weeks ago, and because I have to call Mac every now and then for my reality check. And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I heard you stop blowing into the whistles, and then I heard you say that on the radio." So I said, "Hey, I'm not by myself anymore." So, and Ray said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm about 50 feet from my campsite." And so they talked about it for a few seconds. They said, "Okay, Mr. Decker, shut down all nighttime activity." I said, "Okay." So I walked back out to the trail, and I told the color belts, I said, "Stay here." I said, "We're going to shut down for tonight." And so I went down to the end of the trail and got Ruben. Ruben was on the radio. And he goes, "What's going on?" I said, "Something is out here in the woods with us, and we need to walk out of here nice and leisurely, like there's don't nobody run." So we all walked back up to the bridge. Now there's about 25 people standing around here. And so Ray, the judo master, Aikido master, and Stu Fabian, and a friend of mine, Mac, his son, who was probably in college at the time, they decided they're going to go back into the woods. Now, this is around midnight now, except they didn't go straight down the trail where I was. They went off to the left. If you look on a map, it's actually going to the right, which is the Lone Star Trail. And if you want to see Sasquatch, you visit the Lone Star Trail in the Sam Houston National Forest. He won't disappoint you. So still didn't know what it was at the time. So they walk into the woods, and we're watching them because it was a full moon. We're watching them. And when they disappeared, we heard this crashing noise, stomping, limbs snapping, and coming right to the east of us, and it lasted about 5 or 6 seconds. And everybody goes, "Man, what is that?" Because everybody heard it. And you could not hear it. And I go, and everybody goes, "What was that? What was that?" And I go, "What did it sound like?" And he says, "Man, it sounded like an elephant. It sounded like a rhinoceros." And I go, "Okay." I said, "How many feet were hitting the ground?" And they all agreed on 2. I said, "Okay." I said, "You just had your first Sasquatch experience." And they looked at me and they go, "You mean Bigfoot?" And I went, "Yeah, call him whatever you want." Now, when I talked to Mac a couple of weeks ago, Mac goes, "I was standing right next to you when you said that." So I remember you saying, "I heard, I'm not alone anymore." He goes, "I heard you in the woods on your calls, and I heard when you stopped." I said, "Okay, Mac, thanks. I need reassurance every now and then." So that was in 97. So all this time, my mother-in-law lives in fact, my wife is from Arkansas. And my mother and father-in-law were involved in agriculture when my wife was growing up. And they moved up on Crowley Ridge, which is like a small mountain range that goes north and south, like about maybe 35, 40 miles west of the river, Mississippi River. And they believe it was formed in 1811 when they had a major earthquake in New Madrid, Missouri, and these two land masses collided. And now you got Crowley Ridge. It goes all the way up past Jonesboro. So anyway, for the past 30 years, I used to go at night. I used to go predator hunting down in the bottoms with my father-in-law's truck. And he had an old international truck, and I'd drive down to my predator calls, and I'd call the coyotes in, but they wouldn't get that close. They probably smelled me. So, but since he passed away, I won't even go outside at night. I won't even walk to the shop. It's not like that dreaded terror that I feel. It's more like an alarm. Don't go down there. Don't, go back in the house. So this has been going on since the early 90s. So I told my wife, I said, "Man, I got to get past this." I said, "It's been going on too long." So in June of 23, we were out there visiting my mother-in-law, and I asked my nephew. One of my nephews, when my mother-in-law was in Virginia, she was staying with my nephew, one of my other nephews. One of my wife's sisters and her son were staying out there at my mother-in-law's place. So I asked, and Douglas doesn't like going out there at night. So I asked him why. So I said, "Hey, Douglas, I know you're sensitive to things like me. What's going on? Have you ever heard anything or seen anything out here?" And he looked at me for about 3 or 4 seconds and he just stared at me and he goes, "Michael has seen the creature." I didn't say anything about Bigfoot or nothing. He just said, "Michael has seen the creature." I said, "I need to talk to Michael." And Michael was my fishing buddy when he was at school. You know, we every time we went out there, he and I would always go fishing together. So I didn't get to talk to Michael then because he worked for the railroad department. But I did see him in August when we went out there for my mother-in-law's birthday. And I said, "Hey, where did you see this creature at?" He goes, "I didn't see one creature." He goes, "I saw 3 of them." And he goes, "I saw a male 8 feet tall, a female a little over 6 feet tall, and a younger male that was working on it at 6 foot tall." And I go, "Okay, where'd you see him?" And he took me to the place down in the bottoms. It was on my mother-in-law's property. She has 96 acres of hardwoods. And so he goes, "It was right here." And I took some pictures of the place. And we got back to the house. And I said, "Now tell me how tall it was compared to the eave of the house." He goes, "Its head was right there where the eave was." I said, "Well, that's 8 foot." And he goes, "Yeah." And so this happened. He's like 37 now. So this happened, and he told me this last year. So he was 16 when this happened. So this is 21 years ago. So when I was there in June, went back up a little bit. When I was there in June, I told my wife, I said, "I got to get past this." So I walked down to the shop at night, turned with my flashlight, turned the lights off, sat in the middle of the shop, said, "Here I am," because I didn't know if it was what was going on. I know I had this alarm going off in my head. Nothing happened. And then that's when Douglas told me about that Michael had seen the creature. So I posted this on Ozark Bigfoot Society, and then I posted again on the what's it called, Arkansas Bigfoot Cartel, and this guy named Robert responded because my mother-in-law lives across from the Village Creek State Park, which is like it's 2,000 or 3,000 acre park, big trails all over the place. And he said that he saw seen tree bends at the park. I said, "Man, you need to take me to that place." So he and I are going to get together next time we go out there. He's going to show me where he saw these tree bends. Now, last year, both my daughters took their kids out there, and they stayed at the park, and they were all over the trails, but they didn't know what to look for. They were just hiking. So, next time we go to Arkansas, this guy Robert's going to meet up with me. He's going to show me where he saw the tree bends. And we're also going to visit one of the chicken farms that is on Crowley Ridge because Sasquatch likes eating chicken, So because the farms, there are chicken farms everywhere from Lufkin all the way to Texarkana, and there's a lot of activity in those areas right around where they throw all those dead chickens away. So we'll see what happens. I'm gonna not ask this individual, "What do you do with all your dead chickens?" Because I think you're supposed to dispose of them properly. But if the critters get them, they're going to let the critters have them. But there's a cave around there too. I found a article on. I Googled caves on Crowley Ridge, and I found an article and I sent it to Wendell. And he goes, "Yeah, that's a big cave because some outlaws used to hang out in it." I'm gonna ask my mother-in-law about it when I get there. Because it's possible that if everybody's forgot about it, Biggie may know about it. So, and it's right around Newcastle where my father-in-law was born. But so anyway, I got a few things to do next time I go to Arkansas.
Absolutely.
But,
Yeah, I've interviewed a lot of those people you're talking about, and there's a lot of activity going on down in that Arkansas area.
yeah, the place where the Arkansas Bigfoot Cartel likes to go is they go out at some state park, and they invited me to go out there in December. And I said, "Well, do I need a hiking permit like you do in Texas?" He goes, "Yeah, I think you do." I said, "All right." I'll find out when I go there. How I'll get a permit and see how long how long is it's good for a year or whatever. And they told me that last year when they were there at this certain area they call Area 2, that their intensity of it got so scared. I mean, it was scary for them. They didn't know if they were getting out of there alive. They were, the creatures came right up to them, shaking the bushes, throwing sticks and rocks at them, and screaming at them. And they looked at each other and said, "Man, we need to get out of here now." And it happened all the way to when they were walking back to their vehicles. Biggie's throwing sticks at them and rocks at them and screaming at them, and they just, man, with this infrasound stuff bothering me, I don't know if I could hang with that. I'm going to try. But Rendell said there's a couple of people that suffer from that. He doesn't, and some of the other people don't. But there are some people that get so far in their gut said, "I can't go any further." And I said, "Well, it'll test my mettle to see if I can go any further."
And when that happens to you, what exactly do you feel? What area of your system do you feel this in?
It just like hits you like a cold like a bucket of water. All of a sudden you just feel this terror. It's almost paralyzing. And I had to look it up to see the effects that infrasound had on people. And one of the effects is, yeah, I mean, you freeze up and it's scared, and I don't know why. I don't know why I'm sensitive to it, because other people aren't. Other people go looking for Biggie. They're not affected by it, but me, yeah, it's,
Yeah, I've heard some people
I
are far more sensitive than others with that. And it sounds like you have, a super case of that to be really sensitive to it. At the time that happened, were you hearing any sounds, or was there anything else different going on around you that you noticed?
no, like one time I was picking oranges, one time I was on my motorcycle, I just nothing out of the ordinary. I've never smelled Sasquatch. Everybody goes, yeah, he stinks. I said, I've never smelled it. I just think it's a pheromone that they release. So and the only time that I really got a glimpse of one was when I was 1980, when I was looking down that tree, and but hearing him run through those bushes or those trees in 1997 was a big confirmation for me. Going, that's what it is. That's why I'm feeling this. But I still didn't know what infrasound was. I thought I was on some kind of wavelength or something. I don't know if it was extrasensory or I didn't know what it was. I didn't even it was puzzling. I go, man, am I on the same frequency of these creatures? I don't, why is this happening? And I've never gone out in the woods looking for Sasquatch. One time last year at my mother-in-law's place, I took a slide because I listened to Ron Moorhead's audio tapes of the Sasquatch encounters he had at the Sierra camp. And and one of them sounded like a slide whistle. So I went and got a slide whistle, and my sister-in-law was sitting next to me. This is in August last year. And she's there sitting, we're behind my mother-in-law's carport, and there's chairs there and stuff. And she's smoking a cigarette, and I broke one of my bats hitting the tree with it. And I was blowing in my slide whistle, nothing happened. In fact, I didn't feel anything that time, that danger out there at night at that last time I was out there. You see, the people on Crowley Ridge, there's on both sides of Crowley Ridge, there's a lot of agriculture, and on Crowley Ridge itself, a lot of people grow peaches there. So yeah, Biggie's got, he's got his own buffet right there. So, and thing about it is, and like in Arkansas, you can't use a rifle that has a bullet that has a shoulder on it. They only allow muzzle loaders and cartridges that don't have shoulders on them. So I think that like Village Creek State Park is like a sanctuary for them, that, when hunting season comes around, they go to the park. There's two big lakes there. They can, get fish out of the water or whatever. I don't know what all Biggie eats besides pigs here in Texas. But yeah, like I said, there's all kind of stuff for them to eat, on Crowley Ridge. So
Yeah,
and I've thought about that for years. I said, man, what a place for, why isn't there any here? Because I mean, think about all the food that's everywhere. Tammy's whole family used to be involved in agriculture. Her uncles and stuff, and it just seems like there's so much variety out there. Soybean, there's all kind of stuff. But that's really, go ahead.
Yeah, when you would feel this terror come over you, generally you were in a wooded area, but have you ever felt that before in any other, like at, in a house or in a public setting? Have you ever had that feeling happen in any other state?
No, no, not even, because let me give you an example. I graduated from Paris Island before my schoolmates graduated from high school. And I had those guys were screaming in my face and screaming in my ear. And it's nothing like, I mean, that's a cakewalk compared to what that terror you feel when he's around, you know? No, I've never felt it in a public setting. I was by myself, but like when I was on the bridge with Mac and all those other people, I didn't feel it anymore. I don't know if it was because I was, in a certain distance away from the creature, or it's because I was getting the good vibes from everybody else, but I didn't feel that, terror anymore.
Exactly. So a lot of people talk about where there's Bigfoot, there are other unusual phenomena. Have you ever seen any of the orbs or anything like that out in the woods?
No, the only time I've heard about that is like when Ron Moorhead's camp. No, I don't know nothing about the orbs. I don't know what the connection is with Sasquatch and the orbs. Or I just, I mean, I read a lot of books about Sasquatch. I've got all the authors, from the older books, not some of the newer guys. They just rehashing what other people have said. But the only time I heard anything about Ron Moorhead didn't come out and say it in one of his books, but he's talked about this low frequency that affects people. And I kind of read it, okay, but it didn't register until somebody told me about infrasound and called it that. And Wendell told me about that, yeah, it's infrasound. I went, okay. He goes, we have people that go with us and it affects them. And I went, okay, all right. I said, that's got to be what it is,
I've known people that it literally, when it hits you, they literally would go to their knees. They just couldn't stand anymore.
Yeah, you want to escape, I mean, it's like, I want to get out of here fast. Like first time I felt it when I was in the orange grove. And it was like, all I could think about was, I didn't think about oranges, holding these oranges in my hand. I thought about get out of here now, and all I look up, turn around, all I see was trees. Like, oh man, where's the house at? So I got out of there.
You didn't hear any mind speak. You didn't hear those words. You just thought, though, that thought was to just fight or flight, just flee, right?
I didn't know. Nobody spoke to me. Mm-hmm. I know what you're talking about, the telepathy
mind
or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't hear any. I know people claim that happens, but that's never happened to me. I don't know. It's just, I'm not under a wavelength or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it was just an internal feeling that you needed to leave.
Right. It's scary. It's frightening. I mean, it's not, it just, now it's time to go. It's like, get out of here now, and that's, I mean, but I didn't ever want to run because if I figured if it is Sasquatch, he's going to beat me in a foot race. I mean, he's going to catch me if he wants me. And, a lot of people that I've communicated with, and I believe Sasquatch can be dangerous, but he's had an opportunity before to tear me apart like a rag doll, and it hasn't happened. And 2 times I had firearms with me. So I don't know, maybe, I don't know, maybe they're just in a bad mood. They get kicked out of the clan, their wife chatters too much. Who knows? I don't know, but I've never had I mean, other than being scared and, and want to get away, never had anything, bad happen except, being scared.
Well, that one time that you were up in the tree and you look down and you see those hands, how clear was that?
Well, it was at night, and I was under a tree and in the woods, and the first thing I saw were these hands, and I could see the palms, and they weren't as dark as the rest. First of all, I saw this image down there, and it was because it was dark, And I can't tell you what color the fur was or anything because like it was at night and it was under, and we're in the woods. But I see these hands reaching for me, and I saw the face briefly, and I really don't know if I can describe it. I might have seen some flesh tone, but mostly I just saw these hands, and I just kind of yelled, "Whoa!" It freaked me out, and then it was gone. Like it might have taken one step because I was looking on this side of the limb, you know, it might have just taken one step and that was it, but when after I yelled like that, the crickets, you didn't hear any insects making any noise at all. It was quiet, super quiet, and people say that when Biggie's around, all the animals and the crickets and everybody, they stop doing rubbing their legs together. So, but
So you didn't hear it walk off or anything like that. It
no,
just got really quiet.
no, he might have just stepped out of the picture. He might have just stepped around the other side of the tree. I don't know. I didn't, not like the one did in '97. I mean, everybody heard him take off. I mean, he was making a lot of noise. But in 1980, when I was up in that tree, I didn't hear him leave. I didn't hear him approach either. It was just all of a sudden, but
So
so I don't know what happened.
you got that same feeling at that time whenever you saw the hands. Did you get that feeling before you saw the hands or after?
It was before I looked down that I felt that terror, and I didn't, I was up and I didn't know what it was, and I just kind of leaned over and I looked and I see these hands, reaching for my feet, and because they were sticking down because I'd made stirrups out of my rope, so that my feet wouldn't fall asleep. And I went, oh, and that was it. It took off.
So
So
how high up in the tree were you? How tall would
uh,
this have been as it was reaching
it
up?
was a big tree. It was a big tree. I was probably like 15 feet in the air. I was probably sitting on a limb that was like 15 feet in the air.
Could
It was a chore to get up there. I had to throw my rope over the thing and pull myself up with the rope and then pull my shotgun up. It was a chore. And I wasn't gonna climb down that tree at night. It was too hard to get up there. If I'm gonna fall out a tree, it's gonna be in the daytime. But
so this how close did this get to your feet, the hands?
I don't know. I don't know. He didn't get me. He didn't touch me. He got my attention, but he didn't touch me. I don't know if he was a big animal, he probably tapped me on the shoulder. But it must have been a young one because he just couldn't reach me. I just reaching up there, maybe he was trying to reach me, but he didn't, So
You said you've read a lot about Bigfoot. What are some of the things that you can resonate with that you think are probably accurate pieces of information about Bigfoot?
do you mean about the clans or
Just any
about
information
them
you've read that you think holds true.
according to what happened to me?
Well, according to
Um,
what happened to you, or just what you think Bigfoot is, and just information that the audience might want to hear about.
oh, I don't know. There's a lot of opinions out there. I have mine, but uh, I think that I don't think that they're apes. I don't believe in evolution. I'm a born again Christian. I don't believe in evolution. And and it's just, and that's just my opinion. I don't believe that they're apes because I don't believe in evolution. But I think that they're a type of people because they're family oriented, and if they're trying to run you off, they probably have young ones in the area, and that they want to protect them. But I got a friend of mine that lives up in Hawkins, Texas. He saw one on the Sabine River, and that's how he and I got in touch because I made that description about how it ran through the woods, snapping the branches and stuff. And Randy goes, it's happened to me, except this was in the daytime with him. And he and his cousin were hunting on the Sabine, hog hunting, and they heard this coming up on the side of them, the limbs snapping and stomping and stuff. And Biggie come out on a 3-point stance and stood up and looked at him, and he goes, Billy, it had a man's face. So, and I said, I believe you. I said, because I don't think that they're apes, because there's no crossbreeding between apes and human beings. But there are, let me give you an example. Okay. Back when my wife was pregnant with my first daughter, this is 83. Rachel was born in 84. Okay. So it was late 83. There was an older Mexican couple that adopted Tammy and I, and kind of took us under their wing. And they're both gone now. And Pat was from Monclova, Mexico, old Mexico. And the subject of Sasquatch came up. And she goes, they have Sasquatch in Mexico. And I go, really? She goes, yeah. She goes, and she started telling me the story about Juan de Oso, John the Bear. And it's not the kids' book that you see now, because I've tried to Google search it, and you ain't gonna find nothing about Juan de Oso. But supposedly Juan de Oso was born in a cave. His mother was kidnapped by a bear, and somebody was walking through the woods and heard this woman had giving birth, and he rescued them and took them both back to where he was. And this probably was like around the turn of the century, 1900. And Juan grew up just like everybody else, except he never wore shoes because his feet were too big. And I don't remember Pat saying that he had a lot of hair covering, but only she goes, he had real big feet and he never wore shoes. But he went on to have a family and all that, you know. So there's a component there that I believe, because I don't think Pat was lying to me. And there's other, like Brandon said, he's going to Oklahoma this weekend because he thinks there's a hybrid. Somebody said there's a hybrid up there around some lake, a female hybrid. So I think that they're, you know, a type of people, and that they'll kidnap people, you know, and they can have children, you know. And if they were gorillas or chimpanzees or whatever, that wouldn't happen. You know, they would be born dead, or they wouldn't never conceive, you know. So I just think that they're a type of people, and even my wife thinks this. She said, "Really, just leave them alone. They just want to be left alone." I went, "Yeah, they're just, you know, they just want to be left alone." And they're so back in some of these woods that people don't even hunt these places. It's too far to walk in and too far to walk out, you know. So they know where to hide. They know where the food is, and so it's just my opinion. I think they're a kind of people, you know, that the government doesn't really want us to know about. There's a lot of stuff government doesn't want us to know about. But
Why do you think the government would not want those to be known?
Because the woods would go crazy. You know what I mean? There's a lot of Sasquatch hunters out there now, but if they confirmed it, you know, these poor creatures wouldn't have any place to hide. You know, you know, there'd be all kind of nuts out there. I mean, there are people out there to shoot at them already. You know, it's just, you know, it's, you know, if you see one, you know, okay, you know, don't shoot at them. You know, they're people. What if you kill one and you find out, oh man, it's got a man's face. You know, then you got to live with that. You know, I just don't. You know, I think that really need to be left alone. But I mean, not harassed. I mean, if you just happen to be in the woods and they're with you, that's one thing. But if you go looking for them to kill one, that's a bad thing. You know, they're going to find out they murdered somebody. What it is.
With if one were found and brought forward, you know, with definite identity, and they find out it is, you know, some form of human, like you said, what do you think would happen? What do you think would happen with, you know, any rights that they have or protections, or, you know, where do you think that would take us?
If they found one, they'd probably cage them up, make an example. I mean, these zoos are terrible places to go look for animals. Uh, you know, they're individuals. You know, they have the right to be left alone. You know, you don't have no right to kill them. I don't know about, you know, rights like you and I have. You know, Second Amendment rights or whatever. You know, right to vote. But you know, they're just, you know, they're like us. They're like us, but they're not like us. There's another component to those creatures that they can blend in the woods so well, and you only see them if they move. I'm not saying that they, pop in and out of dimensions like a lot of people think. I don't, you know, I believe in the fourth dimension and stuff in different dimensions, but I don't believe that they're, can pop in and out of a dimension just to escape. I don't know. That's kind of hard to swallow.
I've heard some who have filmed them and they move so slow that you wouldn't even detect the motion because they just slowly go down, behind a bush or something. Um, and then that's one of their survival techniques probably is, when they're around humans because our eyes see movement so easily. And if they can move slow enough, we would almost never detect it.
One time when I was hunting in Calvert, I went up there deer hunting with on Wayne's place, and I was walking really slow through the woods. I'd take like 2 steps and I'd wait 15 seconds and take a couple more steps and wait and just listen, and I walked up on a pack of coyotes that didn't hear me until I stepped on this branch and broke it. And these dogs were, I really thought one of them was going to run in, hit and brush against me. That's how close, I mean, it was loud and it was like a family of them. And I mean, if an ordinary human being can sneak up on a coyote that has ears that can hear a whole lot better than we can, I mean, Bigfoot's Sasquatch can sneak up on anybody. He snuck up on me. And I mean, I wasn't paying attention anyway. I was blowing in my predator calls. I was making a lot of noise. He probably and on those calls. I mean, those CDs of Ron Moorhead's. There's one animal. I don't want to say animal. One creature that makes a noise like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can imitate that with my hog caller. And I don't know if that's what happened. I don't know if he was looking for a wounded rabbit or he heard me make that noise with my hog caller. But he came up. He walked up right behind me. Big animal, a big creature like that, walking that quietly through the woods. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is,
Well,
that they are able to move through the woods and they move so fast sometimes too. I mean, people talk about seeing them go up a hill or through the woods and they can just bound through all of that brush and like it's not even there.
well, like in 1997 when he went running through the trees and snapping all them branches and stuff, it does things didn't even slow him down. I don't know how fast he was going, but it only lasted about 5 or 6 seconds. And I mean, the limb snapping made as much noise as his feet hitting the ground. I mean, it was thunderous, and snapping. So, these small branches and stuff, they might scratch us or, we might have to dodge them or something like that. He just walks right through them. They just get it. They're just in his way.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I've heard, definitely. Well, I want to thank you for joining me today. This has been a really interesting interview, and I think you've had more of the phenomenal pheromones that Bigfoot can put out than any other person I think I've talked to. So you have had that experience. I've talked to several people who've had it, but not to the degree that you have. So I hope you get to see one day and maybe come back on the show and tell me about it.
Okay. Yeah. I'll come back anytime you want, Linda. Thank you for having me on.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.